Okay, so thinking about a career in robotics engineering. Pretty cool, right? We're diving into a report today. It's by the Life Skills Foundation, and they're all about helping young people in India find awesome careers.
Yeah, it's really great to see an organization that's really dedicated to this kind of, career guidance.
For sure.
And this report, it's really laser focused on giving students a clear picture of what it takes to like really make it in this field.
Yeah, they don't mess around. They jump right into what a robotics engineer actually does.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about, building robots on a factory floor, although
Yeah.
that's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
They highlight how much more there is to it, how this field is becoming.
What I think is so fascinating is how the Life Skills Foundation, they emphasize how globally relevant robotics engineering is becoming.
Oh, for sure.
They point out that this isn't just about factories anymore. I mean, we're talking healthcare, we're
Right.
talking defense,
Right, yeah.
even entertainment. I mean, it's incredible how robots are like impacting every single part of our lives these days.
It's true. It's like they're saying, if you can imagine it, a robot can probably do it, or at least help. Right.
Right, exactly.
They even mention this thing called the Holland Code, which, full disclosure, I had never even heard of
Okay, yeah.
before reading this report.
Interesting.
But they use it to show how certain personality types are just naturally drawn to this type of work, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think it's like really valuable that they included that because the Holland Code, what it suggests is that people who are, what they call investigative, realistic, and conventional, those types of personalities tend to really thrive in fields like robotics engineering,
Mm.
which, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, right?
Gee, yeah.
You have to kind of love problem solving and
Yeah.
working with your hands and having a good amount of structure.
It's like having a knack for figuring out how things work and then making them even better.
It's exactly. Yeah.
And speaking of getting things done, they don't shy away from the practical stuff either. The Life Skills Foundation, they lay out a clear roadmap for how to actually land a job in this field.
Okay, yeah.
First things first,
Yeah?
you got to ace those STEM subjects in school.
Yes,
Your science, technology, engineering, and math. Those are key.
absolutely. 100%. A strong foundation in STEM that's like non-negotiable for anybody who wants to be a robotics engineer.
Right.
And then from there, it's typically onto a B.Tech degree.
Okay.
Ideally in robotics engineering itself, but they also mention that like mechanical or electronics engineering can be good paths as well.
Makes sense.
And then, of course, they break down the salary expectations, which, let's be real,
Right.
that's on everybody's mind.
Of course, yeah. Everybody wants to know.
Right.
So according to the report, if you're starting out, you're looking at around 4 to 6 lakhs per year.
Okay.
Not too bad.
Not bad at all.
But here's where it gets really interesting with experience. That salary can jump to 8 to 12 lakhs.
Wow. Okay.
And get this,
Mm-hmm.
at a senior level, robotics engineers in India, they're potentially looking at 15 to 25 lakhs per year.
No, that's
serious.
serious earning potential.
Yeah.
And I think this is where what they were saying about the growth of the field really comes into play,
Hmm.
because the demand for robotics engineers, it's skyrocketing,
Yeah.
both in India and globally. But cities, especially like Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, they're becoming major tech hubs.
Oh, yeah.
And so to be, at the forefront of that,
It's huge.
that must be so exciting.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about a field with crazy high demand, incredible earning potential, and the chance to, literally shape the future. It almost sounds too good to be true, but as with every career path, there's always these misconceptions floating around.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the Life Skills Foundation, they're not afraid to address these.
No.
They actually have a whole section called Myth versus Fact, which I think is super valuable
Yeah.
for anybody who is considering this as a career.
Because it's a what's real and what's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's myth number one that they debunk?
Well, one of the biggest ones that they tackle right away is this idea that robotics engineers, they only work in factories.
Right.
Like, yes, while manufacturing is a huge part of this field,
Sure.
it's certainly not the whole picture. And they really emphasize that robots are popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
Healthcare, defense, education, even entertainment.
Right.
The possibilities are pretty much endless.
So forget those images of robots just, welding car parts.
Right, exactly.
We're talking robots assisting surgeons in the operating room.
Oh, wow.
Robots exploring the ocean floor.
Wow.
Even robots helping to teach kids, right?
It's amazing.
It totally changes what's possible.
Yeah, it really broadens the scope of what a career in robotics engineering could look like.
100%. And this is where I think their dedication to showing all sides of this field really shines through.
Yeah.
They're not just trying to get you excited about the cool factor of robots.
Right.
They want to give you, the real picture.
A realistic view.
Yeah, what this career actually entails.
Yeah.
The good and the bad.
I love that. And that's what really gets into, like the nuts and bolts of the report, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are the actual skills and knowledge that you're going to need to be good at this, to really thrive as a robotics engineer? And they break it down really well, and they start with the absolute essentials.
Yeah.
Mathematics and physics, you got to have those. Those are your building blocks.
Makes sense, right? You can't program a robot to, obey the laws of physics if you don't actually understand them yourself.
Exactly. That's such a good point. And then, of course, there's, computer science, programming.
Right.
I mean, at its core, robotics is about making machines think and act.
Right.
And that all comes down to code. And they actually mention Python and C++ as essential languages for anybody who wants to work in this field.
Why those two? What makes them so well suited for robotics?
That's a great question. So Python is known for being, relatively beginner-friendly.
Okay.
And it's got a ton of libraries specifically for things like data visualization and analysis,
Okay.
which are super useful in robotics.
Right.
C++, on the other hand, it's super powerful and efficient,
Okay.
which is really important when you're dealing with these complex calculations and real-time control that robots require.
Makes sense.
So it's kind of like having a toolbox. You want the versatile tools and you want the heavy-duty equipment. You need both.
Okay, so you've got your foundations, math, physics, programming, what else? Are there skills that maybe people don't immediately think of when they picture a robotics engineer?
Totally. And they get into, the Holland Code again here, connecting it to some other skills based on those personality types we talked about.
Okay, yeah.
Remember investigative? Yeah. That translates directly to, problem solving and critical thinking.
Right.
Robotics engineers, they're constantly facing new challenges.
Right.
So you have to be able to analyze a problem, break it down, and come up with, creative solutions.
It's like you're a detective, but for robots.
Yes, exactly. And then those realistic types, this is where those hands-on skills come in.
Okay.
They really stress the importance of having a strong grasp of engineering principles, not just mechanical engineering, but electrical software engineering as well.
So it's not enough to just build something cool looking. It has to actually work.
Exactly.
We need to understand circuits, sensors, actuators.
Yes,
all the things that bring a robot to life.
Yes. And then there were those conventional types. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
And that ties back to this idea of structure, organization, attention to detail. Because robotics engineering is meticulous.
Right.
One tiny error in your code or your design can have a huge impact on how well it functions.
Oh, for sure. And on top of all of that, you need to be a team player.
Okay.
I can't imagine building a robot all by yourself.
No way. You're going to be working with other people.
Definitely.
Yeah, they actually have a whole section in here about teamwork and communication skills.
Okay.
Because robotics engineers often work in big teams.
Right.
You're collaborating with other engineers, programmers, even designers.
Oh, wow.
So you've got to be able to explain your ideas clearly, both verbally and in writing. Communication is key.
So it's not just about being a tech whiz. It's about being able to actually, work with people.
100%. You've got to be able to collaborate.
Yeah.
Bring all those different perspectives together.
So if you put all of that together, it sounds like you have a pretty good recipe for success as a robotics engineer.
It does, but they don't stop there. They actually lay out, literally, how do I get started on this path?
Love it when they, give you the steps.
I know.
What's step one?
Well, they're very clear that there are multiple entry points here.
Okay, good.
It depends on your interests, what your educational goals are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's say you are dying to just get your hands dirty, right out of high school.
Yeah.
They suggest looking into, a diploma.
Okay.
Or an ITI course in robotics.
Okay.
These programs can give you those practical skills you need to work as, a robotics technician.
So you could literally be building and repairing robots right out of school.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, for someone who just wants to jump right in, that's a great option.
Totally, yeah.
Now, if you're somebody who's more interested in the design side or the development side, if you see yourself leading projects,
Yeah.
you're going to need a more advanced degree.
Makes sense.
They strongly recommend a B.Tech or a B.E. in robotics engineering.
And they actually list out like some of the top colleges in India for this.
Oh, yeah. They mention the IITs, the NITs,
Yeah.
the big leagues.
Yeah.
Those are the places to be if you want to be at the forefront of like research and development in this field.
Yeah, for sure.
But they also acknowledge that like the traditional university route isn't for everyone.
Totally. Not everybody thrives in that kind of setting.
Right, exactly.
And plus, there's so many other options these days with online courses and,
Right. With online learning and all these platforms, there are just so many ways to learn this stuff now.
For sure.
And they actually encourage that. They say, look into those online courses and certifications, especially if you want to specialize
Oh, okay.
in, AI or machine learning,
Right.
that kind of thing.
So it's really about finding what works best for you, your goals, your learning style, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And speaking of goals, if you really want to like push the boundaries of robotics,
Yeah.
become a leader in this field, they say, okay, you're probably going to need a master's or a PhD
Okay.
because this field is constantly evolving,
Right.
So a commitment to lifelong learning is absolutely essential,
That's true of pretty much any field these days.
Right.
You got to be learning all the time.
especially something as fast-moving as robotics. Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the possibilities, the skills you need, the education piece.
Yeah.
Are there any other careers that someone who likes robotics might be interested in? Like, what if they're like, okay, I love the automation aspect of it, but I'm not sure about being like a full-on robotics engineer?
That is such a good question, and it's actually something they address in the report.
Oh, perfect.
They highlight a few other career paths that might, be up your alley if this is something you're interested in.
Okay, cool.
One that they mention is automation engineering.
Okay, now, how's that different from robotics engineering? They sound pretty similar.
They do, yeah. And they are very much related. But while robotics engineers are focused specifically on robots, automation engineers work with a broader range of technologies. Things like PLCs, those programmable logic controllers you find in factories.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
So it's less about building the robots themselves and more about automating processes using whatever tech works best.
Exactly. It's a more system-level approach to automation.
Okay.
Now, if somebody's really fascinated by, like, the brains behind the robot,
Yeah.
how they learn, how they make decisions, then maybe being an AML engineer would be a better fit.
Oh, okay. So that's where the really serious coding skills come in, right?
Yes, exactly. AML engineers, they're developing the algorithms that let machines learn from data.
Right.
It's like they're the architects of artificial intelligence.
Wow. Okay.
They're figuring out how to make machines mimic how we think.
That's huge.
It's a field with applications across pretty much every industry you can imagine, too.
Wow.
We're talking self-driving cars, personalized medicine.
Whoa.
The possibilities are kind of endless.
It does sound like a career path with a ton of possibilities.
It really is. And again, it goes back to what they said earlier, that solid STEM foundation. It opens so many doors.
So even if you're not 100% sure about robotics engineering itself, if you're passionate about STEM, there's a whole bunch of stuff to explore.
100%. And they actually recommend that students, reach out to people who actually work in these fields.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Talk to them about their jobs, maybe even shadow them for a day and get a feel for what it's actually like.
See what it's really like.
Exactly. Get that first-hand experience.
Yeah.
Because nothing can really replace that.
Okay, so before we send everybody off on a mission to, like, find a robotics engineer to shadow,
Right.
let's talk about one more really important thing that the Life Skills Foundation highlights.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is the importance of staying informed and, like, busting those myths about robotics that are out there.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. The myth versus fact section of this report is, like, gold.
It's so good.
Because they take on some of the most common misconceptions about this field.
What's an example?
I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Robots are going to steal all the jobs.
Oh, all the time. That's like the classic fear.
Right. Classic robot fear-mongering.
Exactly.
But they set the record straight.
Okay, good.
They explain that while, yes, automation might change some jobs,
Okay.
it also creates new ones.
Right.
Plus, they say, and this is so important, that a lot of jobs require things that robots just can't do.
Right.
Creativity and empathy and critical thinking human skills.
Robots can't replicate that, yeah.
Exactly.
So it's not about replacing, it's about humans and robots working together.
Exactly. And that's just like a way more hopeful and realistic view of the future of this technology, I think.
100%.
But they also don't shy away from the potential downsides.
Okay.
They do acknowledge there are ethical questions that we have to think about, especially as robots become a bigger part of our lives.
Absolutely, yeah. We
Yeah.
can't just pretend like those aren't a factor.
Right, and they want students to think critically, like ask the tough questions, consider what could happen, and use your skills to make things better for everyone.
That's a really good point.
It's not just about building cool stuff, it's about the impact.
Right. So it's not just, oh, this will be fun to build. It's like, how is this going to affect people?
What are the consequences? Exactly.
And I like how the Life Skills Foundation, they end this whole report with a clear call to action. It's not enough to just like read this and be like, oh, that sounds kind of cool.
It's true. They want you to actually do something.
They want you to take action.
It-
So they've got us feeling all inspired, but they actually tell you what to do about it.
Right. It's not just good luck out there. They actually give you some next steps.
Okay, cool. Like what?
Well, they start with like the most obvious one, right?
Yeah.
Connect with the Life Skills Foundation itself.
Okay.
Their website, it's got tons of resources on there.
Oh, cool.
They've got career profiles. They've got info on different educational paths you can take. They even have info on scholarships.
Wow.
So it's like having a roadmap and a guide all in one place.
That's amazing. So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
They're not just saying, go do this thing. They're like, we'll help you.
Exactly. But they go even further. They're like, don't just take our word for it. They really encourage students to network.
Yeah.
Reach out to people who are actually doing this work, you know?
Yeah.
Robotics engineers, talk to them.
Right.
Maybe even shadow them if you can, see what it's like.
Yeah, because nothing beats that firsthand experience. Like actually hearing about a day in the life from somebody who does it. That's huge.
Huge, exactly. And then finally, you know, they kind of leave you with this message, and I think it's important for any career really, but especially something like robotics.
Okay.
Never stop learning.
Yeah.
Keep being curious. Keep asking those questions. Keep, you know, learning new skills and stuff.
Because that whole lifelong learner thing,
Right.
it's real,
Yeah.
especially in this field, because it's not like things are going to slow down and wait for you to catch up.
Exactly. This field is moving so fast. But that's what's so inspiring about this report, I think. It's not just, here's a job you can do. It's like, be a part of something bigger, you know?
It's a cool message, for sure. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling that little spark, that pull towards the world of robotics, take it seriously.
Right.
Check out those resources from the Life Skill Foundation. Talk to people, see what it's really like. And hey, you never know. You might be the one who designs the next big thing that changes everything.
Right. You could be changing the world. How cool is that?
It's amazing. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap it up. If you want to learn more, remember the Life Skill Foundation. They're a great place to start. Happy building, everybody.